Hello guys, welcome to our channel Tutorial Help Course. Today we will learn about the French Revolution. French Revolution is one of the most important events in the world history. It has given us many important concepts such as fraternity, equality and liberty. So guys, if you like my channel then please subscribe and hit the bell icon to get more and more videos and their notification. Let's start our discussion. French Revolution. On the morning of 14 July 1789, the city of Paris was in a state of alarm. Some 7,000 people gathered in front of the town hall. They broke into a number of government buildings in search of arms. A group of 100 people stormed the fortress prison, the Bastille. The commander of the Bastille was killed. Why did this happen? French society during 18th century. In 1774, Louis XVI of the Bourbon family of king ascended the throne of France. He married to the Austrian princess Marie Antoinette. The new king found an empty treasury. Long years of war had drained the financial resources of France. To meet its regular expenses such as the cost of maintaining an army, the court, running government offices or universities, the state was forced to increase taxes. French society in the 18th century was divided into three estates and only the member of third estate paid taxes. Clergy belong to the first estate, nobility belongs to the second estate, and big businessmen, merchants, lawyers, peasants, artisans, servants belong to the third estate. The members of first and second estate enjoyed privileges by birth. The nobles enjoyed feudal privileges. This included feudal dues which they extracted from the peasants. Peasants were obliged to render services to the lord, to work in his house and fields, to serve in the army or to participate in building roads. The church extracted its share of taxes called taxes from the peasants. Another tax called tally was paid directly to the state. Struggle to survive. The population of France increased rapidly. This led to a rapid increase in the demand for food grain. But the production of grains could not keep pace with the demand. So the price of bread rose. Most workers were employed as laborers in workshops whose owner fixed their wages. So the gap between the poor and rich increased. Things became worse whenever drought or hail reduced the harvest. Growing middle class. Middle class earned their wealth through an expanding overseas trade. They also earned from manufacture of goods such as woolen and silk textiles that were either exported or bought by richer members of the society. The third estate included professions such as trader, manufacturers, lawyers, or administrative officials. All of these were educated. They believed that a person's social position must be depend on their merit, not by birth. The ideas of equal laws and opportunities for all were put forward by philosophers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. These ideas were discussed in salons and coffee houses and spread among common people through books and newspapers. The outbreak of the revolution. On 5th May 1789, Louis XVI called together an assembly of the Estates General to pass proposal for new taxes. In that meeting, the first and the second estates were seated in rows while the members of third estates had to stand at the back. The members of the third estate demanded that voting now be conducted by the assembly as a whole, where each member would have one vote. When the king rejected this proposal, the members of the third estate walked out of the assembly in protest. A severe winter had meant a bad harvest. The price of bread rose. After spending hours in long queues at the bakery, crowds of angry women stormed into the shops. At the same time, the king ordered troops to move into Paris. On 14 July, the agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille. The peasants looted, hoarded grain, and burned down documents containing records of manorial dues. Louis XVI finally accepted the principle that his power would be checked by a constitution. On 4th May 1789, the Assembly passed a decree abolishing the feudal system. Tithes were abolished. The members of clergy were forced to give up their privileges. France became republic. Louis XVI entered into secret negotiation with the King of Prussia. The National Assembly voted in April 1792 to declare war against Prussia and Austria. Thousands of volunteers thronged from the provinces to join the army. They saw this as a war of the people against kings and aristocracies all over Europe. Among the patriotic songs they sang was Marseillaise, composed by the poet Roger de Isle. The Marseillaise is now the national anthem of France. The revolutionary wars brought losses and economic difficulties to the people. The men were away fighting at the front. The women had to earn and looked after their families. Political clubs became an important rallying point for people who wished to discuss government policy and plan their own form of action. The most successful of these clubs was the Jacobin. The members of the Jacobin club belonged mainly to the less prosperous section of society. They included small shopkeepers, artisans, shoemakers, pastry cooks, watchmakers, printed, as well as servants and daily wage workers. Their leader was Maximilian Robespierre. A large group among the Jacobins decided to start wearing a long striped trousers similar to those worn by dock workers. On the morning of August 10, 1792, the Jacobins stormed the palace of Tuileries, massacred the king's guards, and held the king himself as hostage. Later, the assembly voted to imprison the royal family. Elections were held. The newly elected assembly was called the Convention. On 21st September 1792, it abolished the monarchy and declared France a republic. Louis XVI was sentenced to death on the charge of treason as he entered into secret negotiation with the King of Prussia. On 21st Jan 1793, he was executed publicly at the Place de la Concorde. The Reign of Terror. The period from 1793 to 1794 is referred to as the Reign of Terror. Robespierre followed a policy of severe control and punishment. All those whom he saw as being enemies of the Republic, ex-nobles and clergy, members of other political parties, were arrested. If the court found them guilty, they were guillotined. The guillotine was a device consisting of two poles and a blade with which a person is beheaded. It was named after Dr. Guillotin, who invented it. Robespierre's government forced the peasants to transport their grain to the cities and sell it at price fixed by the government. Meat and bread were rationed. The use of more expensive white flour was forbidden. All citizens were required to eat equality bread, a loaf made of whole wheat. Instead of the traditional sir and madam, all French men and women were citoyen and citoyenne, that is citizen. Churches were shut down and their buildings converted into barracks or offices. Finally, Robespierre was convicted by a court in July 1794 and arrested, and on the next day he sent to the guillotine. The fall of Jacobin government allowed the wealthier middle classes to seize power. A new constitution was introduced. It provides two elected legislative councils. This then appointed a directory and executive made up of 5 members. The director often clashed with the legislative councils. The political instability of the directory paved the way for the rise of a military director, Napoleon Bonaparte. Omen Movement. Women were active participants in all the events which brought changes in the French society. Most women of the third estate had to work for a living. They did not have access to education or job training. Only daughters of nobles or wealthier members of the third estate could study at a convent. Working women had also to care for their families and their children. Their wages were lower than those of men. Women started their own political club and newspaper. About 60 women's clubs came up in different French cities. One of their main demands was that women enjoy the same political rights as men. They demanded the right to vote. In early years, the revolutionary government did introduce laws that helped improve their lives of women. Schooling was made compulsory for all girls. Divorce was made legal and could be applied for by both men and women. Women could now train for jobs, run small business. During the reign of terror, the new government issued laws ordering closure of women's clubs and banning their political activities. Many women were arrested and a number of them executed. It was finally 1946 that women in France won the right to vote. The life of a revolutionary woman, Olympe the Gorgeous, 1748 to 1793. She was one of the most important of the politically active women in revolutionary France. She protested against the constitution. In 1791, she wrote a declaration of the rights of women and citizens. In 1793, she criticized the Jacobin government for forcibly closing down women's clubs. National conventions charged her with treason. Soon after this, she was executed. Abolition of slavery. One of the most revolutionary social reforms of the Jacobin regime was the abolition of slavery in the French colonies. The slave trade began in the 17th century. French merchants sailed from the ports of Bordeaux or Nantes to the African coast, where they bought slaves from local chieftains. The slaves were packed tightly into ships. They were sold to plantation owners. Throughout the 18th centuries, there was little criticism of slavery in France. It was finally the conventions which in 1794 legislated to free all slaves in the French. But 10 years later, Napoleon Bonaparte introduced slavery again. Slavery was finally abolished in French colonies in 1848. The Revolution and Everyday Life. After 1789, in France, there were many changes in the lives of men and women. One important law that came into the effect soon after the storming of the Bastille summer of 1789 was the abolition of censorship. In the old regime, all written material and cultural activities, books, newspapers, plays could be published or performed only after they had been approved by the censors of the king. But now, the Declaration of the Rights of man and citizen, proclaimed freedom of speech, newspaper, pamphlets, books, and printed pictures, flooded the towns of France and into the countryside. Freedom of press also meant that opposing views of events could be expressed. Plays, songs, and festive processions attract large number of people. Next, Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1804, Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself Emperor of France. He set out to conquer neighboring European countries. He introduced many laws such as the protection of private property and uniform system of weights and measures provided by decimal system. Initially, many saw him as a liberator who would bring freedom for the people. He was finally defeated at Waterloo in 1815. Many of his measures had an impact on people long after Napoleon had left. Thank you for watching my video.